Hello again, Year 3. Good morning. I hope over the last few days you have been busy writing a fantastic workhouse diary entry from the point of view of your Victorian character. This is certainly what we've been working on, what we've been building up to, and what we have hopefully been achieving over the last few days. The ones I've seen in class and the little snippets people have sent me over email already, I've been incredibly impressed by. I sort of set you that challenge when we began this, when we certainly began our kind of main bit of writing on Tuesday. I set you that challenge of making this the best piece of writing you've ever done. Now, that sounds big, doesn't it? The best piece of writing you've ever done. But we've learned more this year than we had last year. And certainly, I think this could be the best piece of writing you've done this year. So why not the best piece of writing you've ever done? I think that's a realistic possibility for this. And I know a lot of you have been working really, really hard to achieve that. So great job. Now, if you need to finish yours off, if maybe you didn't quite reach the end yesterday, obviously that would be a great thing to do first of all. But this video is working on the assumption that you have finished, that you've finished off your diary, you've brought that to a close, and that we're ready to assess it. Hopefully that is the case. So we've been working on particularly some of these key features. These are some of the things we've looked at throughout the year that we know are really good, really good features to include when we are writing to entertain. We have thought about our paragraphs as well, because we know that we start a new paragraph when we're talking about a new time, place, topic, or person. And hopefully you've produced something similar to this. So these next couple of slides are some of the paragraphs that we've either written together on these videos, or it might be some of the people in class have helped me to write. And I'm hoping yours is similar to mine, where you've got your different sections, your different paragraphs, you've thought really hard about those different features which we want to include, and hopefully you've kind of signed it off at the end. So maybe you've got something a little bit like this. Anyway, I've got to go now. I can hear Mr. Pickering coming down the corridor. Robert. If you haven't sort of signed it off, have some sort of ending like that, because we don't really want to just end it. Also, I've vanished there. We don't really want to end it kind of right in the middle of a sentence or a paragraph. So bring it to a proper end. And then what we're going to be thinking about today is a bit of proofreading and a little bit of editing as well. So think back to when we have proofread in the past. Can you remember what it means? Have a chat to whoever you're with, maybe. Have a think. In school, we sometimes do this with our purple pens, and those are our purple proofreading pens, and we're going to be thinking about that today. So you don't need to have a purple pen, obviously. You can do this in whatever pen or pencil you have to hand, but we are going to go through that same process that we go through in class. We want to make this the best piece of work we can, and that doesn't just mean putting a final full stop on your last sentence and then not looking at it again, because we want to actually make sure this is the best it can be. So step number 1 of our proofreading, we're going to read through your work to check each sentence makes sense on its own. So start and end with each sentence and actually just think to yourself, does that sentence completely make sense? Very often when we're writing, particularly if we've got distracted halfway through a sentence, or maybe we weren't fully paying attention, maybe CBBC was on in the background and we were watching a bit of that as well, we might well have made a few mistakes along the way. And that's okay, but that's what proofreading's for. We're trying to sort of get rid of those mistakes ourselves. So have a look at the sentence I've put on the board here. Can we read that back to ourselves and see what the mistake is? Have a quick read through now, see if you can spot it and let me know what the problem is. Bit of a tricky one to spot this, but I see this all the time in books. You'd be amazed. After breakfast, we were sent to the workroom. That's what it says, isn't it? Or at least you think it is, where if you're not reading carefully. After breakfast, we were sent to the workroom. So we've got 2 these, so we would cross one out if we needed to. Okay, so pause the video, proofread, particularly looking for, does each sentence make sense on its own? Then come back when you're ready. Okay, so the second thing we're going to proofread our work for is punctuation. By punctuation, we mean things like capital letters, full stops, commas, any of the little marks that we use on a page to help our reader make sense of our writing and to help sort of organise our writing, we need to check out for. So I think there's 3 things missing from my sentence below. Can you spot them? Let me know what they are. So we are missing a capital letter at the start, aren't we? We're missing a full stop at the end. Third one, a little bit trickier, but we have worked on it lately. Can you spot what's missing? At 8 p.m, comma, because that's a fronted adverbial, we were sent to bed. Okay, so pause the video now, proofread your own work looking for those missing bits of punctuation, please. And the third one, you might have picked up one or two of these along the way, particularly if you've been reading carefully. But we're going to be looking through now for any spellings that maybe don't quite look right to you or you're not 100% sure of. Now, I'm not expecting you to necessarily know the right spelling for it or indeed to necessarily spot all of them, but it is a really good thing to do. And if you spot something where you think, you know what, that doesn't quite look right, now's a great time to check it. Maybe you could Google it, look it up on the internet, find out the correct spelling and correct it if you can. So I've got one here. Oh, I should say as well, one of my good tips for this part of proofreading, so that you don't get lost in the meaning of the sentence, I actually sometimes proofread for spellings backwards. I'll show you what I mean. So if I were reading this one backwards, I would read, I'll explain why I'm doing this in a second. You might disagree with one of the words. Whipped were we noise much to made we if. Now, while I was reading that back to myself, I wasn't actually getting the sense of the sentence at all. I wasn't getting the meaning of the sentence because it didn't make any sense, did it? I was reading it backwards. But that actually let me focus on each individual word. And that's sometimes quite handy if you are specifically looking for spellings, because it means you don't get lost thinking about the meaning of the sentence or does the sentence make sense. You are just looking at each individual word. And that can sometimes be quite a handy way to really just focus in on each word individually. Now, if I were doing that, I think I'd have spotted a bit of a problem here. I wonder if you've spotted it as well. The actual sentence is, if we made too much noise, we were whipped. Or at least that's what I want it to say. But I'm not sure this says whipped how I want it to. So if I were maybe looking at it going, do you know what, I'm not quite sure that's right, that would be a great time to maybe ask an adult, maybe Google it, maybe just double check it in a dictionary if I'm feeling confident with that. And if I were doing that, I would see, actually, yeah, that's not how we spell whipped. It's got an H and a P in it, so I would write in whipped. So if you need to make any little changes to your spellings, that's a great way to do it. Okay, so pause the video, have a quick look for spellings if you need to, and come back when you're ready. Okay, so now that we've proofread our work, we're feeling confident that there aren't any little mistakes in it. That's what proofreading is all about, really. It's making sure those little mistakes, things like spellings, punctuation, maybe the odd sort of word in the wrong place. It's about us getting rid of any of those small mistakes, which we're probably feeling really confident ourselves to improve and to make better. What we're going to look at now is what we normally think of as peer feedback. Now, you might not actually have a peer with you today, so it might be slightly different. But this is where we're actually thinking in a bit more of an editorial sense. And what I mean by that is not just thinking about those little things like, oh, yeah, missing capital letter, but actually, have we made this the best it can possibly be in terms of the content of our writing? So when we're looking at peer feedback, this is my opportunity to sort of ask you to reflect on the key things that we wanted to do well in this piece of writing. So it's not now just, oh yeah, I've misspelled a word or, oh, missing capital letter. It's now actually thinking slightly bigger than that and thinking, have we actually included those features which we set out to include? So in class, this is something we would normally do as a pair. So you would be with one other person in the class. Now, obviously, at the moment, that's really tricky. You can't be with us here in class. But if you've got maybe an older brother or sister, I think they'd be really good for this. If you've got a bored teenage brother or sister, get them on board for this. That would be great. If you've got a willing mum or dad who isn't on a working from home video call themselves at the moment, if you can ask them nicely, they might be able to help you with this. That would be a really good one. So sorry, apologies. And we're going to try to do a little bit of feedback of our own work. So what this means is we're going to try to either them give you some feedback or you give yourself some feedback. You can do this yourself if you're just on your own. Let's look at how we're going to do it. So the author is you. So in my case, my name's Mr. Bass. So I'm going to write my name here. Your reader is who you're with. So let's say I had my mum next to me. and she was, very kindly not on her work video call. She was here with me. That would be my reader. So you're the author, person helping you is your reader, and you're going to work together. Doesn't mean mum's going to do it for you. You're going to work together to solve these, to go through these questions and have a think about what we can fill in. And each time, if you've got someone there with you, have a bit of a conversation about this. Is it clear to them that you've done these things? Can you actually show them that you've done these things? Because it would be far better if you were able to say, hey, look, here's some great vocabulary I've used, rather than them having to hunt in your work for it. So work together on this, and hopefully, I think if this is working really well, it will be a case that you can actually direct them and say, look, here's where I've done that feature, and they can say, aha, yes, I can see you've done that. So the first question, what was the main topic of each of the 4 paragraphs? Now, if you've written your paragraphs really effectively, if you've thought really carefully that, okay, yeah, I'm going to group all my sentences on food together, I'm going to group all my sentences on work together, for example, it should be really obvious to your reader what each paragraph is about. If you've done that successfully, it should be really clear that they can go, aha, yeah, that's all about food, so I'll write food for the second month, for example. After that, find and copy 3 great pieces of vocabulary the author selected. Now, again, I don't want this to be solely the job of the reader. I want you, authors, that's you, year 3 children, to have a look through and pick out your favourite pieces of vocabulary that you have used. And then your reader can hopefully agree. Maybe they'll actually find one they prefer. Maybe they'll say, I actually don't think that is such a great piece of vocabulary, and maybe we can improve it. So if, for example, one of your good pieces of vocabulary that you selected was good, your reader might actually disagree. They might say, I don't actually think good is such a good piece of vocabulary. Could we make it better together? And maybe you can edit your work then as well. Next one is find and copy a simile the author's used. Now we know a simile is where we compare something using like or as. If when you're looking through your work, you realise, oh, I didn't include a simile, well, now's a great time to add one in. You can find a suitable place, maybe your reader can help you with that, and you can add one in now. Next up, find and copy your 3 favourite fronted adverbials. So we know all about fronted adverbials, we've learned a lot about these lately. It might be things like at 8 p.m. or when we got to the dining hall. So it's those little bits at the start of a sentence which tell us how the verb was done, or how that action was performed. So find 3 really good ones that you can write down. Finally, if your reader, particularly if it's a sort of older brother or sister that you've managed to convince to help you with this could be done verbally. It doesn't need to be written down necessarily if mum or dad maybe is feeling a bit, I can't say lazy. What I meant to say was tired. I'm sure they're very tired. Yeah, if they're feeling a bit tired, they don't necessarily need to write this down, but hopefully you can have a good conversation here about how you got on. So ideally, you might be able to say things like, do you know what? I saw really good adjectives. I saw great adverbs. We picked out some brilliant fronted adverbials that I could really see in there. I loved your simile. It might be that actually they've spotted 2 or 3 things you can improve upon. Maybe when they were looking through your work, they said, do you know what? We couldn't actually find any similes, so that can be something to think about next time. Or maybe they said, I really liked your fronted adverbials. All the ones you used were 1 word long, so sadly, quickly, and so on. And maybe their comment is going to be, next time, could you do a fronted adverbial that's a few words long? Have a good chat about this and really try to kind of get a good sense of how you have done. Now, if we were doing this in your literacy books, you'd get a comment from Mr. Vass. And actually, you can still get that comment. And the way you're going to do that is by emailing me a photo of your finished Workhouse Diary entry as part of your kind of big weekly roundup. So probably on Friday, that's a good day to do it. If you can send me all of your all the work you've done or the work you're most proud of on a Friday afternoon, I will have a look at it and I will send you Mr. Vass's comment so you can get some feedback from me as well. But I'm really, really looking forward to seeing these, and I hope you are feeling super, super proud of this. And I bet lots of you can genuinely say to yourself today, I think that is the best piece of writing I've ever done. And wouldn't that be a fantastic achievement that you can feel really, really proud of? So if you, at the end of this, you feel like you can say that and you can honestly look yourself in the mirror and say, yeah, I I think that is the best piece of writing I've ever done, then give yourself a big pat on the back, give yourself a house point from me, and feel proud for the rest of the day. I will see you back for maths. Have a good rest of the morning. I'll see you then. Bye.